Activity AC02, and it's our first the series of problems that we're doing in a very simple assembly design problem. Okay, without any dimensions, I want to create these three parts and assemble them as shown. Make sure that they are constrained so that when I move them apart and update, they go back to the original configuration. All right, I don't need this, so I have a uh, product product structure. So what you can do is you immediately, without having done anything here, you go File, Save Management, Save As. Now, if you want to change the name of it, you can do that right here. For example, I can say AC AC02, okay, and it's going to go in a fold. It will go in a folder that I have created here. Let's go on my desktop, March that date, ACO2. So everything that I do for this problem is going to go into that folder, including any product and any parts that I made. Okay. Now remember, in order on the final exam, you have to not only give me your product, but you also have to give me all the parts that make that product. Okay. So right now, we just saved this product in that folder. Incidentally, just because I give it that the name, it does this product name up here does not change. If I insist on see the same thing, I can change it from here. Properties. I can call it uh re. So I'll say, for example, all right, like that. A C O to the part. The product name is still product underscore AC02. But in the tree, this is how you make it appear. If you want to, you don't have to. All right, I'm going to insert the bottom part. Insert a new part in there, and I'm going to call this thing right away properties bottom plate, bottom plate, and this is the part name, bottom plate, and what I changed up here was the instance name. You see that? All right. I'm going to make it now. So double click, you expand this thing. Notice that we're still in the assembly design. You double click on this bottom plane branch. You are now in the part design. Where is this? See that? This is the part design right there. You can see that this is a single gear part design. So on that horizontal plane, I will sketch. I'll draw a rectangle like that. Okay. And we know that there is a hole here where the bolt is going to go through. So let me make the bolt here halfway. You can see that this is halfway line. And if it's not, if you just put it there, you know how to work it out. Top line, control, bottom line, control the center. And you're going to say, for example, equidistant. Okay. All right. Now, if you resize this thing, for example, you notice that this always remains halfway between these two. Okay. Exit, padded. I'll make this thing point a little bit lower than that, 0.3, maybe 0.4. Yeah, maybe 0.3. The dimensions don't matter in this problem. Okay. All right, that's done. So you go all the way to the top. Put your cursor here. Double click on it. And if you click on the floppy, the the old product is saved, and the product in the part in it is going to be saved. Now go insert new part in there. I always say no. That's entirely up to you. Right click properties, and I'm going to call it top plate. The part name is right here. You can see this is the part name, top plate, and this is the instance name, top plate. Okay. Say okay. We now make it. So double click on this branch. This is the part. Double click on it. You're in part design. Sorry, on that top face, I'm going to sketch. And I'll do another rectangle like that. For example, I'll draw it here and we'll clean it up in a minute. So another circle there. Notice that when I let me hide this thing for a second. When I select, see that? I want to draw a circle. Notice that if it happens to be catching the halfway point, right? This is exactly halfway between the top and horizontal line as far as distance is concerned. So you draw it like that, okay? And now the other one is in hiding, so let me bring it back. The other part I put it in hiding. Uh, there. All right. So back here, okay, so you can see everything, and there's the normal view. There's the normal view. Now, if you want to coincide these things, so for example, this left line control right line, we can make it coincident. Top line control this line coincident. And this line, okay, this line control. See how much easier it was if I actually drew it in the right spot? And finally, I want this circle to be concentric with that. So, for example, this control that. You can make it concentric and later on coincident, of course. Let's see what happens if you make it coincident. Okay, it'll do it. Automatically make it concentric. Good. So if you want, this is all done. Exit, exit, and then pad it. I think we made 0.3 for the other one. We're going to do exactly the same thing here, 0.3 right there. Now, for the third part, you go all the way to the top, insert, new part, say no, and call this thing the bolt, properties, fastener, properties, I'll call it bolt. Here's the part name. Here is bolt. I'm going to make it. Not the different ways to make it. You can actually draw something and shaft it, or you can start building it from these circles if there is no clearance, for example. So let's make sure that we are in the part design. We are in the part design, and on that top face, I will sketch. I want to circle the size, so why don't I actually? It's possible to project these things, but uh, let me actually go ahead and project this circle because I don't want to resize it. That being the case, I might as well use it, and then exit, okay, and then add it in the other direction. Let me make it a little bit longer so you can see it. Oops, that's too much. Maybe one preview. Okay, that's good. And then I want the bolt head. I'm still in bolt, so on that top face, I'll sketch another circle. And we're going to make it concentric with that. This is the bolt head. As you see, this control that to make them concentric. Exit and pad it. Bolt head. Okay, so let's make it 0.3. See how it looks? 0.2 maybe. Whoops. Sorry. The other 0.2, not 2. 0.2 and in the other direction. Actually, I'm not sure that may be right. Yeah, that's good. Okay, good. All the way to the top. Click on the floppy. Everything is going to get saved. Remember, the many ways of doing these things. You do it any way you want, as long as you create whatever is asked for. Now, the problem is that there are no assembly constraints here. So let me hide these, well, let me collapse these things. There are no constraints. So here's the toolbar which says constraints. Let's fix something first. Here's the anchor, fix component. Let's fix this thing so that when I apply constraints, this thing stays put. Now let's move things apart. Uh, you look for the manipulate icon, the toolbar, and right there, move, manipulate right there. You see this? For example, I can drag this thing up, drag it this way, move this thing that way, do some crazy rotation to these things. For example, rotate this thing about Z, rotate this thing then about Y, rotate this thing about X. Problem is that we're stuck. That's where they're going to stay. So now we have to start putting constraints. So coincidence, and there are many ways of doing. For example, you can say coincidence between this edge and that edge. Now, if you update, you see what happens. They get lined up. And for example, you can say coincidence between this edge and that edge. Update like that. Okay, let's try it again. Coincidence between this edge and that edge. There. I think I picked the wrong edge last time. And yeah, for coincidence between this axis and that axis, this last one is, let me delete this last one. Coincidence between this axis and that axis, and coincidence between, for example, you see, I'm not going to do that right now. I want to show you what happens. Say, okay, if you update, they get lined up, but they have to touch. And there are many ways of doing it. For example, you can say coincidence between this face and that face, or you can do those edges, circular edges, and there we are. Now, if we move these things, and did all kinds of crazy things to it, for example, there we are, there. Well, there's no sense in moving this one because this is like actually anchored. And if we say update, they should go back to where they were. That's what fully constrained uh, assembly will be. And you can see, obviously, it's not. Everything's okay. That's the problem. You can see that. Because of the way that I did it, this edge and that edge are coincident, and these sides are coincident. So that is mark reduction, you know, significant mark reduction. So you have to do one more constraint. For example, you can say coincidence between this, let's say that edge and that edge. Let's see what happens. Like right now. Now, if you do all kind of crazy things to it, they should go back to where they are. Please make sure that you test these things on the exam because, after all, see, you can move this, but again, everything is with respect to that being fixed. So, if you got the impression because I anchor it, you can move it, that is not really what was intended to say. Means that essentially there's no reason to do this. But anyway, so update, and they go back where it is. So this is anchored to the original position that we anchored it in. Okay. I hope that's clear. I can move this, but because I anchored it in that initial position, it goes back to where it was. That's it, folks. So this is the first activity AC02.